Greetings metalheads and welcome to another edition of the Friday 13th YouTube channel. So today we're going to be talking about a forthcoming album which is about to be released in August on Massacre Records by a band called Toxik. They have a new album coming out called Mortis, which is a fantastic album and really well worth checking out. Now, Toxik were originally formed back in 1985 by guitarist Josh Christian. Also Mike Sanders on vocals. We also had bass player Lee Irwin and Sal Dabador on drums. Recorded the first demo. After the first demo was recorded, Sal left the band to be replaced by Tag Langer, who recorded the first album, World Circus. After the release of the demo tape, the demo got sent to Roden Records, who found this demo to be really interesting. Fantastic music, high-pitched vocals, very technical music and some fantastic guitar playing. So the band was signed to Road Racer Records in 1987 and released their debut album, World Circus. Now if you got this album, you know just how great it is. Some fantastic songs like Heart Attack and the title track World Circus. Very catchy. Now Josh Christian to me is a fantastic guitarist, certainly underrated, and he kind of reminds me a little bit of Mike Romeo from Symphony X. Both people have their own styles and you're really good at identifying them if you hear what they sound like. Now the first album, World Circus, also featured a bass player called Brian Bonany. Now the band recorded their second album in 1989, also for Road Racer, called Think This, which is a fantastic second album. Now I really like the first album, but I thought the second album more potential, as you will probably know if you've already got the album. This album also featured new members. Charles Sabian on vocals, which I really think is a fantastic singer. I thought he did a great job on Think This. You know, it's a different style to what Mike had. Mike was pretty much more higher. This guy was a little bit lower. But the music was a bit more technical on the second album. So I reckon Charles's vocals really did suit this album. Great album indeed. Now on the second album, Think This, the band also really had a second guitarist. His name was called John Donnelly. Great guitarist, a great addition to the band, and really helped out on live situations. I really like the second album, Think This. I think it's got some fantastic songs, really catchy. For me, one of my favourite songs on that album is There Stood a Fence. It's kind of a ballad, and it's really, really good, really well thought out. Other great songs on that album that I really like, you probably like as well, is Think This, Greed, Spontaneous, Black and White, some really good songs, Time After Time. This is a really, really good album. Think This. It also was re-released later on in years as the first album was, World Circus, on Displease Records. Now for some strange reason, after the band released Think This, the band broke up. I don't know why, what went wrong, but the band did reform back in 2007 to do a first reunion. Now this was a great reunion. It got a lot of interest from people. You know, the band actually played in Europe, and that's when Displease Records released the first two albums. Sadly, the band broke up again in 2010, only to return in 2013, and have carried on from this day. They've had a couple of lineup changes. They've had drummer Jason Bittner on drums, who's now the drummer for Overkill. Mike Sanders also came back to the band to record some material, and so did Charles. So the new album's called Mortis, which means This Death. It's going to be released in August on Massacre Records and contains 10 songs. Now the lineup for this new album is Ron Iglesias on vocals, Josh Christian on guitar, Eric Von Druten on rhythm guitar, Shane Bullius on bass guitar, who's been with the band for some time, and also drummer James DeMara, who's also the drummer for Heathen. Now at the moment, as I'm reviewing this album, the band are on tour, both bands Toxik and Heathen, touring Europe together. So if you're out there watching the shows, enjoy it. I bet it's going to be a fantastic tour. Now James has really got himself cut out doing 2 sets in one night, so respect to the guy. It's got a lot going on and I hope it works well for the bands. So the album, Mortis, was recorded by the band. Maro Appleton also mastered and mixed the album. And the artwork was done by Alcides Burns, who does Burns artwork. Now I really like the artwork for this album. I'm just going to explain to you what the artwork's like if you've not seen it. It's got a picture of a skull with the world on top of it. And above that is the band's logo, Toxik of course. At both sides of the skull you've got two machine guns, and then you've got 2 fists at the bottom. And just in between those you've got like 2 towers, which kind of looks like the Eiffel Tower in Paris. Looks like a really, really good artwork. It looked great as a t-shirt. Looking forward to actually seeing the full package of this when it's released. Now the album contains 10 songs. We've got the title track Mortis, which is the first song on the album. We've also got the song Feeding Frenzy, which is followed by The Radical. Then we've got Power, Hyperreality, Creating the Abyss, Straight Razor, Chasing Mercury, Devil in the Mirror, and the last song Judas. Now this album is pretty much like the first 2 albums, but it's a lot heavier and a lot darker. Some very catchy songs and riffs on this album. You know, Toxik's style isn't quite simple like most people. To me, they kind of remind me a little bit of Voivod, Mekon Delta, Sieges even. Not sounding like those, so don't get me wrong, they don't sound like those bands whatsoever, but they have that technicality in the way the songs are time changed, so you get some sort of idea how the band sound. Really catchy songs, fantastic playing, great vocals. On this album the vocals are pretty high, but very interesting to hear. Now, like the second album, Think This, there's a lot of intros and outros on this album which really blends in. I guess some way you could say this is kind of like Think This, but it's not. You know, the way they've done the intros for each song, but it's a really catchy album. Some fantastic songs here, and it's a very heavy album. So if you like the first two albums, yeah, you're probably going to like this, but if you're looking for something a bit more heavier, then this is the album for you. It's a fantastic album, really good comeback album, but don't expect it to sound like the first two albums. The band have progressed, even though it's still Toxik. Now, the first song, This Mortis, is a fantastic song. When it really kicks in, it really gets going, and Ron's vocals are really high pitched, but don't let that put you off. It's kind of a little bit like King Diamond, Rob Halford, but it's a great introduction to the beginning of the album. Both guitarists, Eric and Josh's guitar playing on this song is fantastic, especially with Josh's guitar solos. Fantastic riffing. You know, this guy's a master, you know, totally underrated. It's a really well thought out song. I guess you could say the music's kind of a little bit like Heathen, Toxik, and some of the vocals could be like as high as Ripper Owens' vocals. Now the second song, Feeding Frenzy, wow, what a fantastic song. This really does kick you in the balls. It's got some energy. I mean, James's drumming is insane. The pedal work on his double bass is amazing. Some really heavy riffing on this. Really well thought out album. Really thought out song. So this is a fantastic song. It's one of the heaviest songs on the album, but like I say, the album is heavy, dark, but it's still Toxik. You know, listening to this album, the more I listen to it, Toxik are a pretty unique band. You know, there's not many bands out there that have their own style. I mean, obviously they're going to have other influences in there, but Toxik are pretty unique. Fantastic musicians. You know, I really wish I could see this band on tour at the moment. Now, the third song on the album is called Radical. I had to laugh when I first heard this song because it's got an intro of two people arguing about religion. You know, once you've heard it, you'll listen to it and laugh and think, my God. But yeah, it's really well thought out song, but the intro really does capture the music. Now, the more I listen to this album, the heavier it gets. It's a really heavy album, guys, so if you want something heavy, but you still like the technicality that Toxik used to do back in the day, this is the album for you. So I'm just going to briefly just tell you what songs I really like from this album. Obviously, the title track of This Mortis is a really good song. I also like Feeding Frenzy, The Radical, Creating the Abyss, Straight Razor, Devil in the Mirror and Judas. All the album is fantastic. There's 10 songs. It's going to be released on Massacre Records on the 5th of the 8th, 2022. So check this album out. Well done, guys, for a fantastic album. Looking forward to seeing you on tour. So I'm going to give this album 4.5 out of 5. Brilliant album. Thanks for watching. Stay metal, guys.